hello. Welcome back to the Diane's POV podcast. My name is Diane, and I'm so glad to have you guys here with me. So let's get into the episode. Okay, so life recap. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably already know, but this past weekend, I was in Dallas for a friend's wedding, and honestly, one of the most beautiful ceremonies I've ever seen. And I love Dallas. Like, I feel like Dallas is one of the top 3 cities that I love to visit in the United States. And it was like nice because I met so many like amazing people, so many new faces, and also like got to see a lot of familiar faces, which is honestly really nice. And I would say I had a blast. Okay, so for today's episode, I just wanted to talk about something that I've honestly been working so hard on these past couple years. And like sometimes I just fall back into this habit and it kind of sucks because I've been working on it. But my bad habit right now that I'm trying to kick is saying sorry. Like, I know it sounds so stupid, but when I say sorry so frequently, and a lot of the times it's like unnecessary. Like, I don't have to say sorry. It just comes out. And I feel like it's just a part of my vocabulary for some reason. And it's funny because like a couple months ago, my sister pointed it out. And ever since she pointed it out, I like started keeping track. And I've been just like trying to kick the habit of saying sorry. And also, like, this past weekend, I met this really cool girl. Her name is Britt. And I guess she, like, pointed it out as well. And we kind of had, like, a conversation about it. I was like, yeah, it's, like, a habit that I'm trying to kick. And it's just, like, I don't know. I wouldn't say addicting. But I feel like I'm just, like, so used to it that it comes second nature for me to apologize. And, like, maybe it's something that I picked up as a child. And I know, like, when we're younger, we're always conditioned to be, like, polite and to apologize and to accommodate others. And I guess like we kind of associate apologizing as to being more polite or nice or whatever you want to associate it with. So I've been like really focusing on when I say sorry. It's like, do I need to say sorry? Or like, why am I actually apologizing? Is it necessary for me to apologize in this situation? And as always, I did my research. So this all happens in our ventromedial prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is known to kind of help us make the right decisions or in our decision making process, and also plays a large role in our emotional response. So when we learn that apologizing equals being polite or this or that, we kind of link those together and create like a synapses where in certain situations we tend to apologize and whatnot. I guess like one of the main reasons people in general tend to apologize is to avoid conflict, right? So we're just trying to maintain the peace, maintain the harmony, avoid conflict and fights and stuff like that, because naturally we don't want to engage in certain situations. So over time, our brains kind of develop this neural pathway in our brain where apologizing acts as a protective mechanism to reduce perceived threat and maintain that balance. And as always, it's always linked to the dopamine release system. And a lot of the times when we do apologize, it kind of makes us feel better. And it just like gives us a little bit of a dopamine hit. And it kind of acts as a way of like de-stressing, because when we're in our fight or flight and we're like dealing with conflict and all this negativity or whatever, we're in a fight or flight state. So when we just apologize, then we're able to de-stress and just like go in back into that calm state. And honestly, society itself plays such a large role because when we're younger, we're more prone to being programmed. And during that time, like that critical period, we're kind of like shaped and molded into people that can fit into society. And when it comes to that, there's also gender roles that play a role. You know what I mean? Oh, look at that. So gender role, whether we like it or not, a lot of the times, girls in particular are often socialized to be more accommodating and empathetic and nurturing, which could lead to over apologizing as a way to avoid being assertive or being too assertive or confrontational. While on the other hand, boys are actually less likely or discouraged to apologize in certain situations because they don't want to appear as weak, right? So this is just like conditioning from a young age, depending on our culture, our environment, and stuff like that. And honestly, who knows? Like maybe we're erasing those as Gen Z or millennials or as time goes by, because a lot of the traditional gender roles are being redefined in the best way possible. So, our childhood experiences play such a large role in how we are in a society today. So, if we learn this behavior of apologizing for every little thing, then we tend to kind of reinforce that learned behavior and creates bad habits. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that apologizing itself is a negative thing. Apologizing isn't terrible. Like, we all end up apologizing for things that we did wrong, but sometimes we kind of like go overboard and overuse it. And I honestly fell into that multiple times where I'm just like saying sorry here and there, just like throwing it around. It's like, hey, sorry, I have a question. Or like having a question isn't something that I have to apologize for. You know what I mean? And just like anything else, like the more you do something, the stronger the connection is in your brain. So when you are constantly apologizing left and right for things that you have absolutely no control over and that you don't really need to like be apologetic for, then you're constantly reinforcing that learned behavior and increasing activity in your prefrontal cortex. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger and I was going through school and stuff like that, I was always like taught that I needed to diffuse conflict as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is to just apologize. So I would always like say sorry when I honestly didn't do anything wrong, or like instead of like actually coming with the conclusion and facing the conflict head on, we were always taught to just apologize and let things go, and given the responsibility of always making things right. And it's not a bad thing to make things right. However, just diffusing the conflict as quickly as possible isn't always the right solution to the problem. You see what I'm saying? So it's like we're always taught to just apologize as quickly as possible to avoid conflict rather than just like one going through the conflict, finding a common solution and just like moving forward, and everybody can be happy at that point. So the overuse of the word sorry or the fact that we're apologizing kind of reinforces the idea that apologizing is the only way to maintain the harmony and to maintain the peace in a social setting. So it creates kind of like a fear response loop. So your brain would kind of internalize that and be like, hey, like this is the only way that we are going to be in a calm state, we're going to be in a peaceful environment, and this is the only way that we're going to be good and safe. You know what I mean? So it creates this fear loop and it kind of connects it with your anxiety. So when people are trying to stand up for themselves, it's going to be a lot harder because your brain is like, no, this is a danger zone. You know what I mean? So it's going to be harder and harder for you to like stand up for yourself when you're constantly apologizing. And honestly, this will have such a large impact on you socially. Like it will impact your confidence, your relationships, and how other people perceive you, to the point where people kind of undermine your authority or your intent. You know what I mean? So honestly, like these past couple months, I've been just kind of like watching like what I say and kind of being more intentional with my apologies. Like if I actually do need to apologize, I will apologize. I will diffuse that situation the best way that I see fit. However, just like throwing around sorry willy-nilly, like it just didn't, like it doesn't make sense, but it's so easy to do. So for me, it wasn't the idea of like diffusing conflict, because 95% of the times when I do say sorry, there is no conflict. So I just like realized that it was a part of my vocabulary at some point, and I was just saying it to say it. Like there was no actual reason for me to say sorry. So like when I kind of just became more aware of that, I just like been more intentional about when I actually need to say sorry, or when and where I actually do need to apologize, rather than just saying sorry every other day for every little like minuscule thing. I guess like another thing is a lot of the time people kind of like link people that apologize a lot into being more nice, which honestly doesn't make sense, at least to me, because I feel like my kindness and me being nice has nothing to do with how many times I say sorry. Um, and like a lot of people may think so, and it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. That's all I'm saying. Um, and in this case, like I feel like when I do, I just say sorry to say sorry. Like I don't think there's an actual like real reason on why I say sorry a lot. Like I feel like especially as an adult, as like a 21-year-old, I feel like I picked it up more when I was working with elderly patients in a clinic setting. And it was just like a way of me just like showing or like trying to be more empathetic, because a lot of people were dealing with a lot of chronic pain, and I guess it was just easy to be like, I'm so sorry, like I'm sorry that you're dealing with this. um and I guess I just picked it up from there, because like patient after patient, I'm just like telling them that I'm sorry, and it's like something that I honestly don't have to be sorry for. um and I guess it's just like a way I show empathy, and it just became a habit for me to say sorry for every little thing. And now I'm just trying to like kick that habit, because it's like there's so many other ways that I could say something rather than just like starting with sorry. And mind you, like there's like other ways that I could show empathy, and there were other ways that I showed empathy to both patients and people in general. um but I feel like it was just like the easiest way for me to do it at the time, if that makes sense. And I guess like now I'm just like realizing that I can be a very nice, empathetic, kind person without having to apologize for every like little inconvenience that either I bring or somebody else goes through. And honestly, I would say that I don't like conflict, but during moments where I have to face conflict, I think I handle it pretty well without being like over apologetic or something like that. Because a lot of the times, the social norm is to like avoid conflict at all time, or diffuse it as quickly as possible, and just like avoiding rocking the boat. So honestly, as any learned behavior, you can always unlearn it. You know what I mean? So there's like so many ways that you can rewire your brain in order to be more assertive and stop apologizing for every little thing. And I guess the first step is awareness. And to just like recognize when and why you are apologizing, really like ask yourself why it's necessary. Like sometimes like I'd be like, I have a question, but instead of saying, hey, I have a quick question, I would be like, sorry, I have a question. Like that sorry doesn't need to really be there, you know what I mean? And I feel like in like the words that you choose will either come off as confident or come off in a way that you think that you are a burden, you know what I mean? Anywho, so first step is be aware of what you're saying at all times. Like just be more cautious. And honestly, I feel like when you're a little bit more intentional with like figuring out whether or not you apologize too much or you're saying sorry too much, then you'll recognize it a lot more. Because honestly, I didn't really like recognize it as much until somebody else pointed it out. So another great way to rewire, this one I got from my sister and from Britt and from a lot of people actually, is just like rephrasing. Just like instead of saying sorry, just show some form of gratitude. So instead of saying sorry that I'm late, you can just say thank you so much for waiting, or thank you for your patience, whatever you want to like say, you know what I mean? So it's just like rephrasing the way you say things to come off as a little bit more confident and not just like think of yourself as a burden, or the fact that you're burdening somebody else. And another big thing is just like practice being more assertive, because honestly, assertiveness allows you to communicate more directly with people, and also like really just like stand up straight a bit, you know what I mean? Just because it's like when you apologize, like sorry, I can't do this right now, or I can't go, you can just be like, hey, I'm just busy tonight, I don't think I can make it, you know what I mean? Those two have like the exact same meaning, but and they basically say that you're not available, but one you're apologizing and the other one you're just letting them know. So just like play around with words, find ways to be more like direct and confident with what you're saying, because words matter. Words really, really matter. Another thing that you can put into practice is saying no without apologizing. Just like that example I just gave, just being like, no, I can't make it. Or like you can explain yourself without just like over apologizing and just be like, I'm so sorry. Like you honestly have nothing to be sorry for. Like, yeah, you can't make it, but then that's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? And just like knowing that you are able to like stand up for yourself, put yourself first, and that you deserve to take up space just like everybody else, because the earth is abundant, bro. There's room for everybody at the table. And just like practicing self affirmations, like I know everybody talks about it, but I feel like when you realize how powerful words are, then you'll really like see what's up, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure you guys probably seen this on TikTok. If you haven't, definitely search it up. But there's some scientists that did studies like on water crystallization and how words can affect it, and they did like a positive affirmations versus like negative self-talk or whatever, or just like being mean to water. Like I know that sounds crazy, but let me just tell you what happened. So when they did the positive affirmations and they crystallized the water, like it formed these beautiful crystals, like very symmetrical, just like absolutely stunning, right? But when there was all this negative talk, the crystals just like it wasn't symmetrical. It didn't form like this beautiful pattern. It was just like kind of all over the place. Um, and people done like similar experiments with plants and like plant health. So it's like it's the same with us. Like words carry so much, and the way we talk to ourselves are important, and the way that we speak to others are just as important. And I feel like when you are over apologizing and you're constantly saying sorry, you're kind of like diminishing yourself and just like kind of reinforcing that idea that I need to apologize because I'm in the wrong. And honestly, like when you're breaking these habits, sometimes you feel guilty because you're just like going through this transition period. And honestly, just ask yourself why you feel guilty. And also just ask yourself if it's a situation where it's appropriate to be apologizing. You know what I mean? So think of when and why you're apologizing. And if it's necessary, try to kind of shift your words. Like instead of saying sorry, you can just do some form of gratitude, right? Because it still works the same way. You're still that nice, kind person. You're just not apologizing constantly for like small things that you don't need to apologize for. Practicing your self affirmations will always help with confidence and boost. And just like don't apologize for being yourself. Don't apologize for taking care of yourself. And don't apologize because you don't have time. Like it happens. It's natural. It's a part of life, and it's like it's your life at the end of the day. Anywho, before I end this episode, I want to leave you guys with a poem. And this one's by Young Pueblo. I think I just butchered his name or her name. I don't know. Anywho, the book is called Inward. And honestly, I just love reading like small little poetry. So this one says, a person grows in beauty whenever they move away from what harms them and moves into their own power. Okay, so I am going to leave you guys with that. Anywho, thank you guys so much for listening today. I truly appreciate it. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and a review. If you guys want to connect, I am on Instagram at DancePOV. And if you guys really enjoy this podcast, please share with friends, family, whoever you think will like it as well. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.